a different day. Did a little yard work today, and now work on the Mustang for a few minutes. Probably won't get a whole lot accomplished today, but we'll get some. Alright, figured I'd give you guys a show around. So we do still have the dash in there, but did get the carpet pulled. Actually looking better under there than I expected. But it does have new front floors installed, and I don't know to what degree the quality of work was, but we'll check that once we get this floor matting out. And we'll go ahead and focus on continuing taking the rest of the car apart before we focus on that too much, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so next thing we're going to focus on is going to be the steering column. Don't know how well you can see it, but down in there is a bolt that brings that out. And then on the inside of the vehicle, we get some bolts underneath. Two on each side here, and then there's a plate that goes through the firewall. So we're going to work on getting that out, and that way pulling the dash should be a little bit easier. Alright, so I was able to get the steering column dropped down like this, but it looks like there is, I'm guessing it's the mechanism for the key. One key feature of these vehicles, and you may or may not be aware of this, but the key will not come out of the ignition unless the vehicle is in reverse. And I'm pretty sure the rod that's connected under the hood is what controls that. And I could finagle to get down in there to get it off, but my train of thought is, why do it the hard way when everything has to come off anyway. So I am going to kind of pause on the dash area for now. You can see, didn't really take any dash panels or anything out yet. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to work on the drivetrain and go ahead and start getting the drivetrain ready to pull. So I'm going to set up the camera and get to work. Hey everyone, welcome to another day. Just started recording today, but I have done a few other things. Said I really wasn't going to do much off camera, but the only thing I did is I went ahead and drained the fuel tank. Got the car kind of repositioned, taking up the entire garage now. And I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this fuel tank out. This stuff shouldn't be too bad, because this is a new fuel tank that the previous owner installed. So it should be pretty easy to get a lot of this stuff out. Now that we have the gas tank out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and work on these. I started playing with this the other night, and the thought of these scare me a little bit, because I do want to try to reuse these. I hear the quality of these is much better than the aftermarket stuff that you purchase. So I'm going to try to gently pry these away. There we go. going to do kind of a short video today. Not sure on exactly how much I'm going to get done, but we're going to start here on the dash, start pulling out the dash pad, some of the trim, stereo, glove compartment, things like that. I want to get this out of the way and get the trim around the windshield out of the way. That way I can remove the windshield, and everything's coming out anyway, so I want to go ahead and remove that. That way there's no chance on damaging the dash pad or anything, because this dash pad is in really good condition, so I want to definitely salvage that. So I'm going to go ahead and start focusing on that and just jump right into the video. So hope you enjoy what we got going on today.